we got the Torah, we really got the Torah in two parts. We got the Torah in Torah Shebechsav and Torah Sheba'al Peh. The written Torah and the oral Torah. And it seems from the halacha that the written Torah must remain written and the oral Torah really must remain oral. There's a halacha that Devarim Shebechsav Iyata Rashay La'irman Al Peh. Things that are written can only be read. They cannot be recited by heart. To me, it's a mystery why in elementary school we were encouraged to remember passages from the Chumash by heart. The Birchas Yaakov and the Aseret Hadibros and the Shiras Hazinu. It's a mystery to me. If there's a halacha that Dvarim Shebechsav, things that are meant to be written, are read from a text and not recited by heart, why would you want to encourage people to do the opposite? Seems a mystery to me. And furthermore, Chazal say that Dvarim Sheba'al Peh, the components of oral law, you're not allowed to teach them from a text. It means you're not allowed to write a text, you're not even allowed to use the text as a basis for instruction. The oral law must remain oral. So, what is the significance of that? Why are there two components to Torah? We have the written text, which of course is in the Sefer Torah, in the scroll. We have the oral commentary. What is the idea? Why is there this insistence that it be that way? Why couldn't God give us a single text that would cover everything? I mean, obviously it would be a lot bigger. It would be more like an encyclopedia. But still, I'm sure God could design a text that would cover every possible eventuality, every possible situation. Why is there the body of oral commentary, not just oral commentary? If it was oral commentary, you would be, as they say in Yiddish, a halb tzara, half a problem. The problem is that a lot of the Torah Sheba'al Peh hasn't been invented yet. But the Torah Sheba'al Peh is not just recalled and transmitted, it's created. As we use our intelligence and apply methods of interpretation to the text, to the earlier materials, and we expand the scope of Torah Sheba'al Peh. The idea of Chidushei Torah, innovation, creativity. Because why does God do that? That's interesting. There's a famous medrash which deals with a question that the Rishonim ask, and surprisingly they don't cite the medrash. There's an apparent contradiction, because we know that on the 5th day of Sivan there was a ceremony in which the Jews accepted the Torah voluntarily. They said, Kol asher diber Hashem na'aseh v'nishma. Whatever God said, we will listen and we will do. No, we will do and we will listen. And 2 days later, it says that the Jews stood under the mountain. So Chazal said, it teaches us that God held the mountain over their heads and said, if you accept the Torah, fine. If not, this is your burial place. The acceptance of Torah was under duress. So which was it? Was it voluntary or was it compelled? So there are many, many answers to this question. But there's a medrash Tanchum in Parsha Shemos, which says that the Jews voluntarily accepted the Torah Shebechsav, and they have to be forced to accept the Torah Sheba'al Peh. Now the question is, if you're already accepting the Torah, what is the objection to the Torah Sheba'al Peh? Now there's a mitzvah of tefillah. So the question is, the Torah isn't clear how tefillin are meant to be. Are they meant to be round, meant to be square, meant to be white, meant to be black? So the Torah Sheba'al Peh tells us, square and not round, black and not white. So good. So why is that objectionable? I mean, were there people that were chalashing to have white tefillin? They said, no, Torah Sheba'al Peh we don't want. If anything, it would seem to me that people would want a Torah Sheba'al Peh because it gives them more certainty, less people claim to cherish freedom, but many people really like the certainty of enslavement. People in prison like it there. On some level. They're scared of the prospect of freedom. What am I going to do out there? Here I know, I'm in prison, my schedule is made for me, 3 square meals a day. Maybe an extreme example, but there is a certain comfort. I remember I once was in a line in the Los Angeles County Courthouse with a number of people that were on their way to prison. I was standing in the wrong line. I had to pay a parking ticket to renew my license, and I pushed off, procrastinated. So finally, I had to go to the courthouse to pay the ticket. So I go to the courthouse, and there's lines everywhere. Lines for this, lines for this. And I said, "Where do I go?" They point over there. So I get in this line, and I'm standing between 2 people who are talking to each other, and one says to the other, "Whenever I go to jail, I never wear my good gym shoes." I said, "Wait a minute, I think I'm in the wrong line." I said, "What?" I found the right line. But the point is that there's a certain security, all your decisions are made for you. So, there is such a thing that we crave certainty, we crave the joy of not being responsible for making decisions. So if we have a Torah Shavuot, it tells us exactly this is how you do the mitzvah. Fri Apr is an esrog, it's not a lemon, it's not an apple, it's not a pear. It's an esrog. That's very, very comforting. But the truth is that really there are 2 halves of Torah Shavuot. One half of Torah Shavuot is the oral commentary that was given by God to Moshe, which gives us greater certainty, because it defines the terms with precision. But there's another half of Torah Shavuot, which is the own Chidushei Torah, when we're left on our own, using our own wits, to try to apply the Torah to new conditions, new circumstances, new cases, where we are really left to our own designs, and that is very, very, very frightening. Because accepting Torah Shavuot means that ultimately, in many areas of Torah, we are accepting responsibility for discovering what the right thing is. And that's petrifying. Because I think the Jews basically said like this: listen, God, if you want us to do something, just tell us. Whatever you say, we're willing to do. But if you're telling us that we're going to have to figure out on our own right from wrong, and we'll be held responsible for it, that we can't do. That we're not willing to do, not ready to do. We're scared. So God had to force them to do that. So it's a very interesting thing that Torah Shavuot, at least that part of Torah Shavuot, is a very, very frightening prospect. So why did God want it that way? So there are many answers that are given to this question, but I'm going to share with you a answer which emerges from a comment that the Or Sameach made. The famous Or Sameach Meshech Chachma makes a comment in the middle of a very, very well-known piece, an often quoted piece, perhaps the most often quoted piece in the entire Sefer Meshech Chachma. But the interesting thing is that no one quotes it fully. There's another part of the piece that everyone quotes, but they really ignore the context of what it was he was speaking about. The Or Sameach died in the early 1920s. So obviously anything he wrote was well before the Holocaust. And he wrote in Parshas B'chu Kolosai a piece which is considered almost prophetic about the Holocaust. He writes about the Jews for whom Berlin was the New Jerusalem. It used to be that our values came from Jerusalem, and then came the so-called Jewish Enlightenment. And for many Jews, values no longer came from Yerushalayim, values came from Berlin. And as a consequence, he says that there's going to be a backlash that will begin from Berlin. And this was, ominously prophetic, foretelling the Holocaust. And this is probably, it's a massive book, the Meshech Chochmah, written by Rav Simcha Vince, or Sameach. But this is probably the most quoted single paragraph in the book. But what people don't quote is his explanation of why this is. Why this is that people turn to Berlin and away from Yerushalayim. And he says something which is just amazing. He says like this. He says that once upon a time, Torah was the outlet for our creative impulses. In other words, people engaged in the study of Torah. They were mechadesh chidushay Torah. They gave novel interpretations to the ancient texts. They applied the rule to novel situations. In other words, the natural yearning of people to do creative work was achieved in the study of Torah. And then he says there was a decline in Torah study. Torah study became rote, it became repetitious, very little creativity, very little novelty. And as a result, the creative urge was redirected to other areas of endeavor. Other scholarly pursuits, art, music, film, if you wish, etc., 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 etc. And it reached a point where Berlin was able to satisfy in ways that Yerushalayim couldn't. And then he says, and therefore there'll be consequences, and so on and so forth. And surprisingly, this part is not quoted, which seems to me actually is the central point of the whole paragraph, how it comes to be. But I think that's the answer to the question. The answer to the question is like this. There's one book that I know of that answers a certain type of question, and the answer is always there. Not all questions, but there's a certain type of question. If you need this type of information, the answer is always found in that book, or virtually always found in that book. That's the phone book. Right? If you need a phone number, all you have to do is open the phone book and it's there. The phone book does not give you any opportunity for being mechadesh. No one gives original interpretations to the phone book. There's no room for criticism, for analysis, for if you belong to a book club, this is not one of the books that's ever going to be discussed. In other words, it's essentially a reference word. When you have a question, you need another phone number. It's there on the shelf. You take it out, you look it up, and you have your answer. If the Torah was entirely written down, essentially that's what it would be. Maybe not quite as bad as a phone book. I mean, people would probably skim it to get a basic idea of what's there. But if all the answers were there, when a question would come up, you'd find the answer. You'd look it up. It wouldn't engage us in any meaningful way. It wouldn't challenge us. It wouldn't absorb our attention. It wouldn't pose a puzzle. It wouldn't just stimulate our thinking. And there'd be nothing there that we say, wow, let me think about that. And then we'd walk into walls because we're so distracted by that very, very puzzling idea. That's why there's a Torah Shavuot Peh. Because Chazal tell us that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made the Yetzer Hara, he made the so-called evil urge. Ubarasi Torah Taflin, he made Torah as the antidote to the evil urge. But the word Taflin doesn't mean an antidote. The word Taflin means a spice. The spice to the evil urge. Meaning that Torah is the vehicle through which we can sublimate the most base drives of a human being. We can elevate them to a loftier level. Now, one of the most basic drives that people have is the desire for novelty. Something new, something interesting. Now, we don't want the same things day after day. When I was a boy in Yeshiva, there was a fellow there who was very argumentative. I mean, this person would argue any point. He would never agree with you on anything. So I once was making the observation that it's an interesting thing, that when it comes to dinner, if you eat the same thing 2 days in a row, you get frustrated. Like, again, same thing. And yet at breakfast, you can eat the same breakfast every day of your life, and you don't complain. Like, why is that? And the guy gave me an argument and said, no, even breakfast has to be different every day to eat the same thing. You wouldn't. But there is a desire, at least, if it doesn't express itself at breakfast, it expresses itself in dinner, that so things have to be new, it has to be fresh, it can't be the same thing over and over and over again. This is the midlife crisis that I guess people my age experience. You're doing the same thing again, and all of a sudden you have this urge to buy a sports car. In extreme examples, people want to find themselves new spouses and all sorts of things, because the desire for freshness, for newness, is something which it can be overwhelming. So there's a spice for it. How do you sublimate that natural urge? There's in creative work. The work is artistic, which is creative, etc. And it could be in any field. But it could be in Torah too. In other words, if a person engages in the study of Torah deeply with understanding, using his critical faculties, analyzes, and reflects, and argues, discovers new things, then that urge for novelty, for freshness, for newness, can be satisfied within Torah. In other words, where the study of Torah becomes dull, monotonous, then you'll find it somewhere else. And where the something else is a body of value which is antithetical to religion, then there can be disastrous consequences from the Torah's perspective. And that's what the Moshe Chacham was talking about. And that's why there has to be a Torah Shavuot pet. As frightening as the prospect of being rudderless is something which is absolutely necessary. I don't think Torah will not satisfy our basic urges unless it exactly is given in such a way where there is room for us to express our creativity therein. And I think that's really the answer to the dilemma. Why there is a Torah Shavuot. There's a Torah Shavuot because that's exactly how God wants us to use Torah. That Torah should not merely be something that we refer to when we have questions, when we find quick answers. It's not merely the Encyclopedia Britannica for a quick answer. Right? It is something which engages us, which involves us, which inspires us, which challenges us, which gives us the opportunity to exercise our brain muscles. And therefore the Torah was constructed in such a way to provide what we need. It is said, it's a very interesting thing that, in Talmudic studies, there were always, over the generations, different methodologies, different techniques. And one of them was pioneered by the famous Rabbi of Brisk, a method of Talmudic analysis, which was very, very rigorous, one they attempted to call it scientific, And this was the vogue in the yeshivas of Europe, starting from, let's say, about 1870, 1880, and it took the yeshiva world by storm. And people who are scholars of the history of the yeshivas point out that this was a time that the Haskalah, the Eastern European Enlightenment, was in full strength. The Western European Enlightenment already was 150 years earlier. But Eastern Europe, Eastern European Haskalah was really from the mid-1800s onward. And Reb Chaim's derech, his way of Talmudic analysis, really fortified the students of the yeshivas against the Haskalah. Because it gave them something that could engage their minds, that they not be tempted to seek intellectual stimulation in foreign pastures. And I think that's something which is related to the very way the Torah was given. And that's why there is a Torah Shabbal Peh. Whereas Torah is meant to engage us. And therefore I would say that Shavuot, of course, is a time for commitment, just like the Jews said Nasa v'Nishma. They accepted Torah on Shavuot. Every year we go through the same holiday. We're expected to make a commitment of our own. I think that's something we have to think of. It's nice to come to a class and be a good audience. I appreciate everyone that comes and I talk and you listen, and it's very, very nice. But learning Torah has to be more than that. But learning Torah has to be something that engages and challenges you. And that means that over the coming year you have to be thinking in those terms. Your own reading, your own studying, your own asking. You might want to challenge yourself that every week I'm going to ask 5 questions on the parsha. Maybe I'm going to look at the parsha and I'm going to ask 5 questions. That's an amazing thing. That, just asking questions can stimulate thought processes. But you have to be engaged. It has to be something that involves you with passion, with using the power of your intellect. And then Torah can become significant and meaningful in your lives through a way that it generally doesn't if you remain just a passive consumer of lectures and talks and the like. So that's a challenge that you can think about. And in the meantime, everyone should have a very, very happy Shavuot. The joke is told about the Jew who was asked, well, what is the main mitzvah of Shavuot? So he said, the main mitzvah of Shavuot is to eat blintzes. You all know that. Jewish custom to eat cheese blintzes Shavuot. So he says, okay, how do you prepare? So he says, during the period of the Omer, so on the first night I eat 1 blintz. The second night I eat 2 blintzes. The third night 3 blintzes. And so on and so forth. 40 blintzes. Until the last night. And then I eat, I don't want to say the number because I didn't count yet. 100 blintzes. And then I'm ready for Shavuot. So they asked him, what happens if one night you forget to eat blintzes? So I eat the next day without a bracha.